You have been in rooms your entire life, not knowing that a woman made a quiet judgment about you in the first 4 seconds, before you spoke, before you smiled, before you did anything at all. And it was not about what you expected. Most men over 60 believe that physical attraction is a younger man's game, that the biological clock runs in one direction and there is nothing to be done about it. That after a certain age, the best a man can hope for is to be charming enough to compensate for what time has taken. This belief is not just wrong, it is the opposite of what research in female attraction psychology actually shows. And staying inside that belief has been quietly costing men something they did not have to lose. Stay with me through all 5 today, because number 4 is the one that consistently surprises men the most. Psychologists who study this describe it as the single most underestimated signal of emotional maturity that a man's body can communicate. And most men over 60 have more of it than they realize. They just do not know how to carry it. If you want to understand this kind of depth, tap like now. Welcome to this channel, where we explore the real psychology behind attraction, connection, and what women are actually reading when they look at a man. Before we begin, there is a foundation we need to lay, because without it, these 5 things will not make the sense they deserve to make. What we are talking about today has nothing to do with conventional physical standards. It is not about height or weight or jawlines or any of the measurements men typically worry about. What women notice, particularly women in the 45 to 65 age range, which is precisely where the most emotionally sophisticated attraction lives, is not a checklist of features. It is a reading, a rapid, largely unconscious, extraordinarily precise reading of what a man's physical presence communicates about his psychological interior. Research in evolutionary psychology and social cognition has documented this pattern extensively. Dr. Albert Mehrabian's foundational work on nonverbal communication established that the emotional impression a person creates is transmitted overwhelmingly through physical presence, posture, movement, gesture, eye behavior, rather than through words. What women's brains are processing when they first encounter a man is not a list of his physical attributes in isolation. They are processing what those attributes signal about his internal state, his groundedness, his comfort in his own skin, the presence or absence of anxiety, of need, of unresolved restlessness. And here is what makes this genuinely good news for men over 60. The qualities that create the deepest and most lasting physical impression in a woman's psychology are qualities that tend to arrive with age, with experience, with having lived through enough to stop needing the world's approval to feel like yourself. The man who has genuinely settled into who he is, who carries his years as evidence of a life fully inhabited, rather than as damage to be apologized for, communicates something in his physical presence that younger men simply cannot manufacture. You cannot fake having arrived. This is about understanding the real signals, not about tricks or performances. A woman's perception of all of this is too precise for anything false to survive it for long. The first thing women notice is the hands. This one surprises men every time, but research and the testimony of women across decades and cultures is remarkably consistent. Hands are one of the first specific physical features women's attention is drawn to, and the reason is deeply rooted in the psychology of trust and capability. Dr. Robin Dunbar, an anthropologist at Oxford University, whose work on social bonding is among the most cited in the field, has written about how hand behavior in particular communicates social and emotional information in ways that faces sometimes conceal. The hands tell a different story than the mouth. What women register is not the shape of a man's hands in an aesthetic sense. What they register is what the hands communicate about who the man is. Hands that are calm, that rest without fidgeting, that gesture with intention rather than anxiety, that move through space without the restless, self-conscious movements of a man who is not at ease with himself, communicate something immediate and powerful. They communicate steadiness, groundedness, a man who is not performing but simply present. Imagine this. You are at a social event, and there is a man across the room engaged in conversation. You cannot yet hear what he is saying, but you watch his hands as he speaks. They move deliberately, unhurriedly. When he listens, they are still. Not artificially still, genuinely resting, unself-conscious, settled. That quality of stillness in the hands communicates to a woman's nervous system something that registers as safety. As someone who is not scrambling internally, even if the room is noisy and unfamiliar. There is something else about hands that women read, and it carries particular weight for men who have lived a full life. The evidence of a life in the hands, the texture, the small marks, the history written there, is not something to conceal or apologize for. In the psychology of attraction between adults, evidence of having lived and worked and built things is not a liability. It is a form of narrative. It says, this person has done things, made things, shown up for things. And that story, registered at a glance, contributes to the impression of substance. This communicates something she files without consciously cataloguing it. This is a man with a history worth knowing. But hands are only the first layer, because the second thing women notice carries even more information. The second thing is the eyes, and specifically, not how they look, but how they move. There is a substantial body of research on what psychologists call gaze behavior, the patterns of where and how long a person looks during social interaction. Dr. Michael Argyll, whose decades of work at Oxford on social interaction became foundational in the field, found that the quality of a person's eye contact communicated more about their psychological state than almost any other single non-verbal signal. Not the duration of eye contact alone, the quality of it, the stability, the warmth, and most importantly, the genuine attention it either contained or lacked. What women's instincts register when a man looks at them is not primarily whether his eyes are a particular colour or shape. They register whether the look feels like genuine seeing or like something else, performance, calculation, hunger that is looking at her rather than actually perceiving her. The difference between these two qualities is something women feel before they name it, and they feel it with considerable accuracy. Men who have developed what psychologists call authentic presence, the quality of actually being in the moment rather than in their own heads managing an impression, carry this in their eyes in a way that is instantly readable. The eyes of a man who is genuinely curious, genuinely interested, genuinely present, look different from the eyes of a man who is monitoring the interaction for signals about how he is being received. One creates connection. The other creates the quiet discomfort of feeling watched rather than seen. A woman at a reunion I heard about from a friend described meeting someone for the first time at a gathering of people who had known each other for years. She said almost everyone there was busy being interesting. And then this man looked at her while she was speaking, and she said something she had almost never felt in a conversation. She said she felt like the only person in the room. Not because of anything he said, because of the quality of his attention. The eyes that were simply, genuinely, unhurriedly there. That quality, unhurried, non-transactional attention delivered through the eyes, is one of the most powerful things a man over 60 can offer. Because it requires having gotten past the place where every interaction is about managing how you are perceived. And that is a place that age, when it has been lived thoughtfully, tends to carry a man toward naturally. The third thing women notice is posture, and the specific dimension of posture that matters most is not what men typically assume it is. Most men have been told that good posture means standing straight, shoulders back, chest forward, the physical vocabulary of conventional confidence. And while basic structural posture matters, what women are actually reading is something more nuanced. Psychologists who study body language in relational contexts describe it as the difference between effortful posture and inhabited posture. Effortful posture is performed. It has a slight tension in it. The body is being arranged rather than simply resting in how it naturally holds itself. Inhabited posture is what happens when a man has genuinely made peace with occupying space. The body neither shrinks nor puffs. It simply is. Dr. Amy Cuddy's research at Harvard Business School on body posture and psychological state documented the relationship between how we hold our bodies and how we feel internally, and crucially, how others perceive us. But the deeper finding in the relational literature is this: women's perception of a man's posture reads not just confidence, but comfort. Comfort with age, comfort with history, comfort with the specific body he has been given and lived in. A man who has arrived at genuine ease with the body he inhabits at 65 communicates something extraordinarily attractive. He has done the inner work. He is not at war with what time has made of him, and that peace with himself registers as safety for her. This communicates something essential. This man does not need me to tell him he is enough. He already knows. We are at the midpoint of today's content, and I want to pause and say this directly. If what we are covering is landing for you, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. Every video here goes this deep, and what is coming up in the next one will continue exactly where today leaves off. The fourth thing, the one I told you to stay for, is something most men have genuinely never considered. It is the quality of stillness. Not the absence of movement, not passivity or withdrawal, but the specific, palpable quality of a man who can be in a social situation, a conversation, a dinner, a room full of noise and activity, and not need the situation to be different from what it is. Who is not restlessly scanning for something better, not visibly processing how he is coming across, not performing ease while internally bracing against something. Psychologists who study mature adult attachment describe this quality using the language of secure functioning, the capacity to be in the present moment of an interaction without the anxious background hum of relational insecurity. Dr. Stan Tatkin, whose clinical research on adult attachment styles has been applied extensively in relationship therapy, describes the securely functioning partner as someone whose nervous system does not treat ordinary social situations as mildly threatening. And that quality, a nervous system genuinely at rest rather than subtly braced, is something women feel in a man's physical presence before any words are exchanged. Imagine this. You're at a small gathering, and most of the people in the room are doing what people do, filling silence, seeking approval, laughing a half beat too quickly at things that are only slightly funny, moving through the space with the low-level anxiety that most social environments quietly produce in people who have not yet made peace with themselves. And there is one man who is simply there, present, still in a way that has nothing to do with being disengaged. He is warm, he is responsive, he listens genuinely. But he is not performing anything. He is not trying to produce any particular impression. He is just there. Women feel this quality across a room before they approach it. It is experienced as gravitational, not because it is rare in theory, but because in practice it is extraordinarily uncommon. Most men carry more background anxiety than they realize, and it broadcasts in the body in ways that are difficult to conceal and almost impossible to fake the absence of. This is the quality that a man who has genuinely settled into himself carries naturally. And for the man over 60 who has done the work, who has arrived at a genuine relationship with his own life rather than still being at war with parts of it, this stillness is not something he has to manufacture. It is already there. He simply has to stop filling it with noise. A word of caution here. There is a version of this that men sometimes misread as emotional unavailability, as keeping women at arm's length, as being difficult to access. Genuine stillness is the opposite of that. It is warm. It is open. It welcomes approach rather than resisting it. The difference is entirely about whether the stillness comes from a place of inner richness or from a place of guarded withdrawal. She will feel that difference immediately. One draws her toward you. The other quietly builds a wall between you. The fifth thing women notice is how a man moves through space, and specifically, whether his movement communicates intention or apology. This one is subtle, but it is real, and once you understand it, you will see it everywhere. There is a particular quality of movement that men who are genuinely comfortable with their age and their place in the world carry with them. Not swagger, Swagger is performance, and women read it as such almost instantly, not aggression or dominance or any of the qualities that conventional ideas of male confidence tend to reach for. Something quieter and more real than any of those. Psychologists who study non-verbal behavior in social settings describe it as locomotor confidence, the way a person moves through a physical environment when they have fully consented to being in it. Men who have not made peace with their age often move in ways that carry a kind of physical apology, slightly contracted, slightly hurried, moving through space as though they are hoping not to take up too much of it. This is not a moral failing. It is what happens when a man is still in some conversation with himself about whether he has the right to be exactly who and where he is. The man who has settled that conversation moves differently. He covers the ground he covers without rushing it or minimizing it. He sits down in a chair rather than perching at the edge of it. He occupies the space he is in as though it belongs to him as much as to anyone else in the room. This is not about physical size. It is entirely about psychological consent to one's own presence. Research on non-verbal dominance and approachability, particularly from the work of social psychologists studying first impression formation, consistently finds that this quality of intentional, unself-conscious movement is one of the most reliable predictors of how others rate both attractiveness and trustworthiness in a first encounter. It says without words, "I have arrived somewhere inside myself. I am not still in transit." This communicates something women feel before they can articulate it. Here is a man who has made his peace. Let me close with something worth carrying with you. Every one of the 5 things we talked about today is a physical expression of an internal state. Hands that are still, because the man holding them is genuinely at rest. Eyes that see, because the man behind them is genuinely present. Posture that inhabits rather than performs. Stillness that comes from having arrived somewhere real. Movement that does not apologize for the space it takes. None of this can be practiced in front of a mirror and deployed like a technique. The body is too honest for that. It broadcasts the interior whether we intend it to or not. And what that means, what it has always meant, is that the real work is not in the body. It is in the interior that the body expresses. The man who has done that work, who has made a genuine relationship with his history, his age, his worth, his place in the room and in the world, that man carries all 5 of these things naturally. He does not need a script for his hands or a reminder about his posture. He simply shows up, fully and without apology, as himself. And that quality, in any room he enters, is one of the rarest things a woman will encounter in her life. Most men are still waiting to feel ready to inhabit themselves completely. They are waiting for some external confirmation that they have earned the right to take up space with confidence and ease. But you are here. You are asking the questions that lead somewhere real. And every insight you carry forward from today makes the man in the room a little more fully, unmistakably present. Comment the word present below if something in today's video landed for you. Just that one word. Like this video if it opened something. Subscribe and hit the bell so you do not miss what is coming next, because the next video explores the one moment in a conversation where a woman decides at the deepest level whether a man is someone she can trust completely. That moment is shorter than you think, and what you do in it changes everything.